No. All right. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Thank you all for joining us today for our fourth Career Ed Talk. This is our virtual career panel that we're doing throughout the year, twice a month. And today's topic is business management and administration. I am going to do a really quick screen share. And can everyone see my screen? So this is the cluster of business management and administration. You can kind of see how many enrollments right now we have in high school programs, and this is across the state of Florida. I pulled this information from the Department of Ed website. How many enrollments in middle school programs? So 147,976 students that are interested in this career field of business management and administration. So top certifications, the Microsoft Office Specialist Bundle. So work on that MOS bundle, students. That will definitely help you in this field. Here are the top high school programs. Again, this is across the state. Here's our top post-secondary programs. And right now, the highest growth in this field is medical secretaries with 2.46% growth rate. High wage of over $30 an hour for web developers. And you can see how many annual openings there are. So it is a high wage, high needs field. So I will stop screen share now. And we are going to welcome all of our presenters. We have three wonderful ladies with us today who all take part in this field at some point in some way, whether it is overseeing an organization and business management or dealing with more of the financial side of running a business. So we have Alicia Miller. She is the executive director of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center, and they're located here in Fort Myers. We also have Chelsea Scomak. She is a lifestyle financial planner with Conte Wealth. And we have Amanda Anderson, who is the fiscal manager at the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools. Students, I really just want you to feel like this is a casual conversation. When you have questions, let your teacher know and they can relay those questions to us. We'll start here with just some basic questions and work around to all of the panelists, and then teachers, as your students have questions, feel free to interrupt. I will open it up a few times during the panel for students to directly ask questions as well. One thing to keep in mind, students, the reason we're really doing this is so that you can have an idea of what is available in our area, what are some possible career fields that you could go into, what type of training and schooling you need for that, and really just to know that if you change your mind, it's okay. You're going to hear from these panelists that they've probably switched careers a couple of times and may end up switching a couple more times. So it's totally normal to say that you don't know what you want to do when you grow up. And you can also have multiple things that you eventually want to do when you grow up. The opportunities are endless, and it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to say that you don't like something if you get started with it. And you can also see how some of these specific careers might play into multiple fields. So Alicia is an executive director. She has to know the business side of things so that she can run her business. But she is also dealing with the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center. So she is providing a human service to people in our area that need that service. So there are multiple jobs that will overlap different career fields. And so it's important to figure out what it is that you're interested in and what skills you have, what you're good at, and then trying to apply those to a career. So we're going to go ahead and we'll get started. Panelists, can you just give us kind of a background of your education? So where you went to college, what degree you went for, and how you kind of got to where you are right now. So we'll start with Alicia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Like Kelly said, my name is Alicia Miller, and I'm the Executive Director with the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center. And I did not come into this position just through one career path, like Kelly said. I went to the University of Florida, and I studied psychology. And then I had a minor in secondary English education. So I actually, when I graduated, I taught high school for almost 10 years. I taught English, reading, journalism, TV production, drama. Clearly, I was not really sure what I was doing, so I just kept moving around and finally realized that maybe teaching wasn't for me, but I really enjoyed working with students and education. And I worked for the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools for 5 years. If you guys know the Golden Apple program, that's the same organization. And I was the director of scholarships there. So I helped students get scholarships and apply for colleges. Side of it. So eventually that led me to where I'm at now. And right now I'm just running the organization. It's a very small agency. There's only 4 staff. And I'm kind of doing the budgeting, marketing. I do everything there, and also the outreach and things like that.
Thank you. Chelsea, let's go to you.
Good morning. So it's funny because I think I have a very unique thing because I am doing exactly what I went to school for. That's like almost unheard of now. So like Kelly said, I call myself a lifestyle financial planner, and I went to school actually I went to community college first, and then I went to the 4-year university. So I will say, if you're teetering on not knowing what you want to do, that is definitely budgetary wise the way to go. I walked out of school with $30,000 in student loans, so which is also unheard of. But I started just undeclared, got all of my gen eds done, and then I went into the business college at Shippensburg University, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do. But then I ended up in accounting and finance, and then I ended up dropping accounting and went into finance with a concentration in personal financial planning. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. The one thing I will say is it's definitely a journey, because I also, Kelly knows this as well, I don't just do one thing. I am more entrepreneurial in nature. So as soon as I find something else I like, I add it on top. So I'm using more psychology in my business, and I also started another company, the day before the country shut down in March. And so I think the biggest thing that I'm getting just from my journey and what I've learned is that you can evolve and grow and change, and the world isn't the way it was even just 5 years ago. So people are more accepting of the things that you add on. So yeah, definitely don't let any I don't know what I want to do, or I might change it. Don't let that stop you, because pretty much everything can be used for everything now.
So thank you, Chelsea. And Amanda.
So I also went to the University of Florida, and I remember being so nervous and upset when they wanted me to pick my major right away. I freaked out. I started with occupational therapy, and then I think I went to psychology, journalism, and then I settled on the business administration track. If you don't know what you want to do, I think that's maybe a good thing to consider, because there's lots of wiggle room to pinpoint what you want to do. And I thought it would be a good foundation for almost any field of study. And after 2 years at UF, I decided to move closer to my family in Orlando, and I transferred to UCF. And I ended up settling on marketing as my major, and I received my Bachelor of Science degree from UCF. And I don't do anything with marketing. I kind of fell into finance. There was no precise path for me. I started just as an administrative assistant in an accounting department, and I ended up eventually getting a really good job at a municipality. And I worked there for 15 years doing finance, human resources, all kinds of that stuff, and budgeting and benefits. And I will give you guys a tip. If you work for a municipality for a certain amount of years, or a public entity like that, you can often get your student loans forgiven. So something to definitely keep in mind. But now I work for the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools, and I love it. And it's a nonprofit, so that's kind of feels good. I feel like I'm making a little bit of a difference, and that's where I'm at now.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Very good points too about post-secondary education. I think both Amanda and Chelsea and Alicia also all kind of touched on it. Getting in and out with as little debt as possible. And the fact that it's okay if you change your mind when you go to school and decide you want to go somewhere else. I also switched colleges. So I went somewhere for 2 years and then changed and went somewhere for the other 2 years. So just because you think you might have to have something specific in mind, it's more of a learning process. It's not just one pathway to get somewhere. There's lots of different paths. So it's okay to try different things and change your mind. And Chelsea also talked a little bit about the 2+2. So if you do want to save some money, go 2 years to your local state college, used to be called community colleges, get all of your core classes out of the way first. You pay a lot less money going to a state college than you even do at a state university or at a private school. So go get those core classes done first for really cheap, and then you can transfer into that larger university or that private school. So the next question, tell us something fun about yourself or an experience that you've had. So maybe you have like a funny story. So best experience, worst experience, some sort of like fun story about your professional life and your career and how you got to where you are. Let's start with Amanda for this one.
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, I think it's like many of you, I got really good grades in high school, and I even got a scholarship to the University of Florida. And I just could not get my act together on what I wanted to do. So I just remember here on paper, everything was laid out for me. I should have had it all together. Scholarship, good grades, got into a good school. I did not know what I wanted to do. And so here I was flailing, freaking out, bouncing around majors and feeling like for the first time in my life, I didn't have it together. And it really scared me. So I don't know how funny that is, but I do want to encourage everybody not to freak out. It's very hard to know what you want to do at 17, 16, 18 years old. And so, you know, people would ask me, what's your major? And I'd be like, oh, I just switched again. And, you know, it was terrible and it was embarrassing, but it all worked out. And so just you kind of got to get out there a little bit and discover what are you good at. Not all of us are going to be extremely passionate with something. Unfortunately, those that are passionate know what they want to do are the lucky ones. But if you don't, you kind of got to get out there and see what you're good at and what you can tolerate doing, because you really will spend a extremely large amount of your life at work. So you don't want to hate it. So kind of go with your gut too. So I don't really have a specific story there, but it was definitely weird for me to be Miss Good Grades, rigid, everything's all in line, and then get to college and just freak out and flail and bounce around. So, but it does work out. You just kind of gotta have faith and take a step out there and see what feels good.
Thank you. Very good things to keep in mind. Chelsea, one specific experience or a funny story?
This is hard. I wasn't expecting this question. I'm sitting here and I have not had the greatest, like from when I graduated school to now, like the journey has not been a fun one. My industry is very male dominated and the industry is changing, but a lot of bigger players are not. So I think it's not really funny, but I would say I think the best part about my path is that because I've always considered myself a disruptor or like a rebel, I like follow rules, like as far as like big rules, I follow all the big rules, but all the little like stupid rules I don't follow. So if I don't like how something's done, I'm like, no, we're not doing it that way. So I think the one thing that I really, really love about what I've been able to do, because I'm this disruptor and entrepreneurial, like at heart, is I've just constantly pivoted when someone told me no. And that is why like my from start to here has been really difficult, because I've had a lot of people try to put me back in a box. And I mean, just until this year, I was very much like, all right, I'm doing it this way. This is how I'm doing it. And because of that, I'm able to make waves in our industry that not a lot of people have been able to do. So I think I don't really know how to close that out with a nice little bow. But I'm thinking more of, if you have a way of connecting people or doing things, like using your skills to liven up a job or like a career or any type of path that you're on, if you can take what you're good at and what you know you want to do and apply it, like now is definitely, people are warming more up to that, especially with 2020. People want something different now. I mean, gosh, I think the last time I spoke in one of these things, it was in person. So this is definitely different. So yeah, I guess just like the fact that you're able to be more yourself now, years ago. That's kind of my fun story.
Definitely can agree with you on that one. Yes. All right, Alicia, funny, interesting story or some lesson that you've learned.
Okay, I will definitely agree with both of the women there. Amanda, I was the same as far as very rigid and strict and rule follower, and then got to college and was like, oh, what's happening? But I didn't change my major just because I felt like I wasn't supposed to, but clearly I did not do anything with psychology. So you don't always have to do exactly what they tell you to do with that. I do have one funny story just to kind of show you that you don't know everything, even though you may think that you do. We all think that we do sometimes, but the current job that I have, like I said, I work for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center, so I obviously work with a lot of deaf people. They use sign language. So when I applied for the job, I didn't know any sign language, and I thought, oh, I'll just give it a try anyway. When they called me for an interview, little did I know that when a deaf person uses their phone, they have an interpreter, probably something I should have looked more into before I applied, but I didn't. And when I got the call, it kind of sounds like a recording, like a spam call saying that an interpreted call is coming through and do you want to accept? And I thought it was a spam call, so I hung up on them. And then they called me again and I hung up on them again. And then they called me the third time and I was like, oh, okay, wait, hold on. So shockingly, they still gave me an interview and I still got the job after I profusely apologized for not knowing about that. But just sometimes maybe make sure you do your research before you do things. It worked out well for me, but it could have easily gone the other way had I not profusely apologized. That's my funny story.
Thank you. Very good point. Do your research. And before you do any sort of interview or apply for a position, you should totally do your research, look it up online, look into the company. I have found that business leaders have told me they're super impressed when students come in for an interview and when they ask, do you have questions? The students have questions for the interviewer. So definitely do your research, come up with some questions before you go on any sort of job interview. It just makes you look as if you are much more interested in the company and that you really do want that job that you're applying for. Alicia talked a little bit about her kind of day-to-day, the type of clientele that she works with, what she does. So let's kind of go around and explain, what does your day-to-day look like? Is it the same every day? Is it something different every day? Walk us through kind of a day in the life of an executive director, a financial planner, and a fiscal manager. So we will start with Chelsea for this one.
So I'm in a unique position, being that I am the marketing department, the financial planner, the accountant, the executive director, like I'm all of it. So my day is split up pretty much between general administration paperwork, because too, I am still my own admin. Next year is when I'm looking to hire on an admin. And I will say about that is that admins in our industry are the backbone to the entire practice, because without, like, we're a mess. So we're constantly meeting with clients. Like today, I actually have 5 meetings with clients. I'm either doing reviews of their investment accounts, or I'm going through financial plans. I do a little bit of coaching. With my other business, I'm also making sure that all of our social media is on point. We're doing a lot of preparation and connecting with people in the meantime. So yeah, it's pretty much like every piece of business that you could imagine I'm doing on a daily basis.
Thank you. Alicia.
I'm with you, Chelsea. When you work for a nonprofit, you get used to not having necessarily the luxuries of big businesses. So I'm marketing, I'm the grant writer, I'm the director, I'm the janitor, I'm the receptionist, everything. So sorry about that. Working from home today. So day to day can change every day. Sometimes it's similar. Grant reports and things like that have to be done on a monthly basis. But other than that, sometimes I have presentations like this, or sometimes I'm in the office. I'm doing different marketing things, having meetings with donors. So it really can change on a day-to-day basis, which is something that I like. I don't like the monotony of every day is the same.
Thank you. And Amanda.
So mine's probably a little bit less exciting. I do get to work in the comfort of my own office at my own pace, which I really like. And when I first get to work, the first thing I would do is open my email, check my email, respond to anything, see if anything urgent needs to be done. Then I will sign into all of our bank accounts, since I'm the one who works with the money here. Make sure that there's nothing strange in there, see what came in, came out. I work with a lot of Excel spreadsheets, so I will probably be in Excel a great part of the day. I may need to cut a check, or a check might come in that needs to be coded. And when you work in finance in a situation where you're going to be audited, everything that you do can be pulled up later. So you want to make sure you're using the right account code, everything's been signed appropriately and approved. And I may get to escape my office and go get a board member to sign a document or a check, or go make a bank deposit. But maybe I'll do payroll. I have to do that a couple times a month, which is, everybody likes you when you pay them. So you're very popular when you're the payroll lady. And, usually it's pretty routine. Month end and year end would be the busiest time. But if you like predictability, you like to know kind of what your day is going to look like, this would probably be a good avenue for you.
Thank you. I want to open it up now to students. So students, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute, have your teacher unmute, or you can use the chat function as well.
Okay, we have two, Kelly. The first being to everybody, if yourself now could go back and give advice to your 16 or 17-year-old self, what advice would that be as far as what to learn really well in school, or what are the sort of the skills that you wish you would have done a little bit better? Also, and we're doing interviewing in my JFG classes, give them a scenario maybe of a job you interviewed for, and if you did anything creative to get that job, on any great advice for interviewing. So twofold, if you guys can answer both of those, and everybody, that'd be great.
All right, let's start with the advice you would give your younger self, or a skill that you wish you would have learned a little bit better. So let's start with Alicia.
Oh, there's a lot of, we could probably have another meeting on the advice I would give myself, but I would say just, it doesn't have to be so rigid. It doesn't have to be, there's probably a lot of students out there who have no idea what they want to do, but then I'm sure there's just as many that have already got their entire life planned out, from where they're going to school, what they're going to do, when they're going to get married, all of those things. So just kind of know that it's okay if life takes unexpected turns, and sometimes it works out better when you don't have every second planned, which I'm still telling myself that every day.
Thank you. Good advice. Amanda.
I'll probably be contradicting myself a little bit here, but I probably didn't think enough in high school about what I wanted to do. It ended up working out okay. And if you don't believe me, it's okay. As you've learned from us, you do have time. But I probably should have. It's easy. It's an easier road if you do know what you want to do and you study it from the beginning. That doesn't mean you're not going to get there or get to a career that you don't like. So don't freak out if you don't know. But I kind of wish I would have maybe planned that a little better. But it did work out for me and for the ladies on this panel. So it's okay. But and then as far as the interview question, in my experience with human resources and when I worked for that municipality for 15 years, it's amazing how many people don't have basic communication skills. Listening, speaking at the right times, looking people in the eye, acting interested, being polite. That will really get you a long way. So if you can learn how to at least pretend to be comfortable talking to people, with those cues, look them in the eye, don't interrupt, be very polite. And yes, people love it when you ask questions at interviews. So just write a couple down that you think you might want to ask, benefits, just to act like you're interested and that you care. I think that is absolutely a great tip.
Thank you. Chelsea.
When I was 16 or 17, my parents went through a really, really bad divorce. And at that time, all I could think about was that our family dynamic was changing. So I wasn't really thinking a whole lot about what was going to happen with school, because I just kind of assumed that any funding that I had for college went out the window, and it kind of did. So that's what helped me get on the path to go to community college. But I think if I look, I don't think I would change anything. Because going to community college really set the tone for what my whole school career was going to look like. So I think if anything, if I were to say anything to myself at that point, is that it gets better. And you're in control of what happens after high school.
Very good advice. Chelsea, we're going to stick with you. Do you want to share something about an interview tip or a way that you've been able to impress during an interview?
I actually have a really funny story about that. So I worked for actually my first job was with my dad. So I always say that doesn't count. I used to clean shoes and handbags that were in fires, because he's a dry cleaner and we used to do fire orders. So I would get paid big insurance commission checks for just wiping down things. So that was cool. But I always worked for a local grocery store. And when I was done with that, I went to go work at CarMax. And fun fact, the person that did my phone interview is actually now my boyfriend. So that's part of the funny story. But I did not know a thing about cars. But for my brother's 16th birthday, he was gifted Herbie the Love Bug. And I mean that, my parents made him an exact replica of Herbie the Love Bug. I don't know if you guys are too young for this, but the little beetle bug, it has a number 53 on it. So during my interview, I acted I remembered words that my family used when they were working on it. And I was just dropping all these car terms. It was yeah, so they fixed the carburetor and they did this. And it actually had no bearing on what I was going to be doing for CarMax. But I thought it was if I know cars, then I'll get the job. And I did get the job, but that's my little. So research, know your stuff. Don't sound like an idiot.
Good points. Good points. Alicia, an interview tip or a story about an interview?
I would just say to relax. I think it's easier said than done, but it's so easy to get really nervous. I definitely am not somebody, over time I've gotten used to speaking more in public, but I used to get extremely nervous. I would get a rash all over my body. Kelly can attest to this. I still get it, but it's not anything I could hide. I would wear a turtleneck just so, because I didn't want anybody staring at it. I would be so nervous. But when I decided to leave teaching, I thought, okay, I've got a degree, I've got 10 years of experience. Of course, it'll be so easy to get a job. And I was shocked at how many jobs I was not getting, even jobs that I think were below my qualifications. And maybe that's why sometimes, but just relax and know that the right job will come. I went on, I think it was 19 job interviews over the course of 6 months before I got hired at the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools. And that was kind of at the point where, I don't want to say that I was like, who cares? But I had gotten to the point where I couldn't stress about it anymore. With that many interviews, so you're whatever that is, it's like 3 or 4 months, almost one a week. You're getting nervous, and of course I'm still preparing, but it's like, what do I wear? How do I act? What do I do? All these things, and you're so anxious that by the time I actually got to this one, I was just much more laid back. I just went into it with, it doesn't matter. I've already been turned down 18 times. What's one more? So I think that was really one of the reasons why I got the job, because I had a lot less anxiety about it, and that probably came off in the interview.
Thank you. So practicing your interview skills definitely helps. It will help you become more comfortable with doing that. We did have a couple of questions that came in through the chat. So the first one is, what exactly do each of you kind of specialize in? What type of certifications do you have to do the job that you're doing? And I know Amanda and Chelsea are in finance. Alicia, if you can speak to kind of, have you done any sort of specialization in finance, in business? Have you taken any extra classes outside of your original psychology degree?
Sure. I don't have any other certifications. Well, I had my teaching certificate, and when I was teaching, I had a lot of like ESOL reading, things like that. But those were things that were required once I got the job. I would say always be growing and continuing your education. The current job that I have right now does not require anything other than a degree. However, I think like most jobs, you're not going to be doing the best that you can unless you're staying on top of the new things. So I'm taking little side classes in Excel just because it's not my forte. I'm also taking little social media and marketing classes, and you can find these classes online for free most of the time. And if not for free, very minimal cost, where usually your employer will pay. Employers like to see that you're wanting to grow, and as long as you're doing your job, if you're willing to go above and beyond and take an extra course, they'll usually cover that for you because it's going to help them in the end. So nothing set that I have, no sort of certification other than just the things that I've done on my own to try to make sure that I'm doing my job as good as I can.
Thank you. Amanda.
So like I said, my degree is in marketing. And I kind of fell into finance, but if you think that you want to do something in finance, kind of like what I do, which is a little bit more general, or, and this has nothing to do with being a CPA or anything like that, but definitely something that you can do now or at any time is like they were saying, Excel, QuickBooks, they all have online classes. You can be doing that now. The more you know about Excel, the better. And QuickBooks is a really good start to get familiar with financial software, because you will have to be using some sort of a software. And a lot of businesses use QuickBooks. When I was briefly in between jobs this last time, I don't know a lot about QuickBooks, and I learned the hard way that I need to learn about QuickBooks because that's what most people are using, and it's a good beginning. Also, believe it or not, in a lot of places, finance is very much linked with human resources. Maybe it's the benefits and the payroll and the risk management type of stuff. But if you want to minor in something, that would be a really good thing to minor in. And also you can pursue your human resources certification. And that you can do on your own time from home. So.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for that. Chelsea.
So my program in college, when I said I had a concentration in personal financial planning, it was all the curriculum for the Certified Financial Planner designation. So basically, all what that means is that I'd be able to put initials at the end of my name. So some things are changing regulatory wise. I haven't gone and actually taken the test to become a CFP, but there's also like behavioral finance designations, retirement planning designations. I think more and more of like what I've done, I've worked with coaches and done courses on just how to be a better business owner, how to have my mindset on straight. I think more and more in the business realm, it's becoming really, really important to have not only yourself in check, but to make sure that you're self-educating, which is outside of just regular curriculum. So learning from others, top people in the industry, getting coached by them. So I think it's more important now, like at least in my field, to be more of like a certification wise, to be specialized in certain things like divorce planning or like I'm really into behavioral, so I use way more psychology than I ever thought I would. It's very, very important now to even differentiate yourself throughout all the advisors, all the planners, that you have these certifications.
Thank you. Another question that came in is, what type of classes should the students study to prepare to have a business management, administration, finance kind of path? What should they be studying now in high school and then next couple of years down the road when they're post-secondary? Amanda?
Things have probably changed a lot since I went to school. We didn't really have a lot of business classes, but I will say you're gonna have to do some math in my field, but please don't be afraid. The math that you are learning there, you are not going to have to probably do in real life. I will say that the math you have to take in high school and college scares people from majoring in certain things. But you know, I'm sure there's computer classes now that weren't available when I was a kid, and you can start learning Excel. And also, believe it or not, writing skills are important because you're going to be writing a lot of emails in your professional life. People notice grammatical errors, they notice misspellings if it's not professional. So if you're taking writing classes, maybe keep in mind that it's kind of important to be able to do basic emails and memos and things like that.
Very good points. Good points. Chelsea, what type of classes?
So my mom taught business in her high school, which I guess of typing, and I was forced to learn how to type when I was 7, so I keep people up at night when I type. I'm so fast. But I would say like anything computer related for sure. And then I know this isn't like a class, but especially with interviewing and all, like I think you guys could get self-educated on sales, because interviewing is selling yourself. It's understanding what people need and filling the gap and how to talk them into things. I mean, not to talk them into things, but I mean, the majority of what is happening in my field is sales. So if that's something of interest to you, where you're going to be client facing and not really behind the scenes, behind the desk, you're definitely going to want to brush up on communication skills, sales.
Thank you. And Alicia?
Well, like I said, I was not a business major. I still do not have a huge interest in business administration, although here I am managing a business. But I think for sure, like Amanda said, your writing skills. I was an English minor, so I am really nitpicky on those types of things. But I personally, if I get an email from somebody that has typos and the punctuation's off, I'm immediately kind of turned off by that. And I know for sure I would be the same way if I was an employer trying to hire somebody. If your resume has any typos, or if you're sending an email, remember that the way you text your friends is not the way that you email clients and coworkers. And not just for business administration necessarily, but anything, any sort of speech class where you get comfortable with talking in front of people is going to help you in the long run. And also leadership class. You may not know now if you want to be kind of higher up at a business level or overseeing other people, but at some point you might decide that you want to do that, and that's the path that you want to take. And having leadership skills and being able to effectively manage people is really going to help you.
Definitely. Very good points. Totally can agree with the writing and communication. So even if you are planning on being, you know, in a cubicle or at a desk and you're dealing with Excel all day long or reports, finances, it's still important to have those communication skills because you are going to have to probably pick up the phone and call someone or send an email. So grammar is huge. Like Alicia said, don't talk to your business associates the same way that you would talk to your friends. Use, you know, correct grammar, correct punctuation, capitalization. You know, that's something I see a lot in resumes is just the capitalization. You do have to use a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence. And punctuation is very important. So brush up on those skills if you can. Pay attention in your English classes. You will find that a lot of the skills you learn in other classes, you will still be using in your career field. Maybe not so much like, you know, geometry and algebra. I don't do a whole lot with denominators and but let's move on. Students, any other questions? Feel free to use the chat box. You can unmute teachers. If not, then I will go ahead and ask a question. I guess.
They have one. What
Okay.
the young lady asked, what is the best part of their jobs that they look forward to every day? And where do they want to be 5 years from now? Where can they grow into? Like what areas or where do they want to grow into?
Very, very good question. Let's start with Chelsea for this one.
Ooh, okay. So my zone of genius, what my jam is part of what I do is I actually go through all my clients' transactions, not in like a judgment way, but I look at all of what their spending habits are so I can detect what's going on. And I'll share a quick story of a client meeting I had last night. Most of my clients, they think they know what's happening in their financial picture until you tell them something different. So an example would be like, people think they spend like $200 a month on food, and then you tell them they spent $7,000, like true story. But last night I actually had a call with a client, and her mortgage statement didn't make any sense. And she thought she had a 30-year mortgage. She's 16 years into it. And I got the pleasure of telling her last night that she actually has a mortgage that's not set to mature until 50 years. So yeah, so these things that I get to discover, for me, it's kind of earth shattering sometimes, but I get to fix it. So I think that's my favorite thing, is getting people just aware on what's happening, because with just swiping a card now or having a subscription, like nobody really knows what they're spending money on. So getting that check is my favorite thing of all time. But 5 years from now, I actually, it's gonna sound really weird when I say it out loud. I'm building an empire for entrepreneurial-minded women. So I have another company that's all about accountability and growth for entrepreneurial women. And then I specifically help entrepreneurial women in my financial planning. So for me, it's building a whole suite of things to support women that are just like me, because we're not really supported well.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick, can I ask her a question?
Yeah.
In the third quarter, we're doing an entrepreneur unit in my class, and we call it the Wolf Tank, and it's based upon the Shark Tank, Chelsea.
I love it.
And I was wondering if you would consider being one of the panelists, because the kids are going to be putting together business plans to get funding. There's going to be three angel investors on this panel that are going to give the kids real money to actually start these businesses while they're in high school. I thought, if there's any of the girls that want to do that, along the way, we could partner up with you and you could help them with the numbers before they hit the wolf tank so that they would be sophisticated enough to talk to the business people. Would you consider doing that with us?
I would absolutely adore that. Compliance wise, I'm not allowed to be involved in the actual like angel part, but we can talk more about that. I would absolutely love that.
Okay, we'll be in touch after the meeting. Thanks.
Evan, I can get you Chelsea's contact. All right, Amanda, do you want to share you like about your job and where you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, I really like helping people. I know that seems weird. How are you helping people? But when coworkers need to know any financial information, I'm the one that they're going to go to. When did we pay this vendor? I need a check right now. Payroll questions, just anything like that. I like to be able to be very pleasant and helpful and get them what they need and make their work days a little bit easier. Also, my supervisor, when he needs something, I like to be able to help him and make him happy. So also in 5 years, I mean, I really like my job. I don't anticipate moving on, but once, I have several years of this nonprofit, I'm sure I could go to a bigger nonprofit or another type job. And maybe I'll stop talking about getting my HR certification and actually do it. So.
Very good. Alicia.
The best part of my day is definitely client interaction. It's been that way no matter which field I've been in. It's just seeing actually making a difference. When I was teaching, it was seeing students get excited about what I was teaching or saying that they understand something, or having students come back to me years later and saying thank you. When I was with the Lease School Foundation, it was having the pleasure of giving students scholarships and seeing, the weight lifted off of their shoulders. And now it's just simple client interaction. I helped a deaf client get his Uber driver's certificate a couple of weeks ago, and now he's all set up and he can start making money. So just seeing people actually happy and having their life change because of something that not just me, but whatever organization I'm working for is doing. In 5 years from now, I'm kind of with Chelsea. I'm going to be taking over the world, where all of us are, right? I hope to be kind of doing the same thing I'm doing now, but at a bigger agency, and just kind of keep growing from there. Never stop learning.
Very good. Thank you all. One question I do want to touch on, because it always comes up in these panels, is based on what you do and your career field, what is kind of the entry wage and what is kind of a high level of money? So I know it's going to be very different from nonprofit versus and maybe entrepreneurship than it would be maybe for a larger corporation. But just across the board, kind of think about the industry, what's kind of a starting wage and what is like top of the scale. So let's go with Alicia.
Yes, so nonprofit by its very definition means not making money. However, so if you're looking to make millions of dollars, I definitely do not recommend going into the nonprofit field or the teaching field. Somehow I constantly want more money, but I'm not choosing those paths. However, I do think that is slowly changing. The mindset that a nonprofit is not a business and should not be run like a business, and that people working there should not be making any money is simply not true. They're putting in all of their sweat and tears and their life into these jobs. Most people I know that work at nonprofits are the ones that are staying out in the evenings. They're getting up early. They're doing weekend events. They're truly passionate about what they do. So I guess I would say most entry-level nonprofits, depending on what you're doing, if you're just doing part-time or administrative assistant type thing, you're probably going to be making in the mid-20s to around 30,000. And then, somewhere if you're in the executive director position or a CEO position, something like that, depending on the level of nonprofit that you're working at, you could be making anywhere from 75 to maybe 200,000 for most local nonprofits around there. That's kind of your peak.
Thank you. Amanda.
So yeah, from the nonprofit standpoint, I think it is changing, but yeah, you're probably not going to, kill it at first. But from a municipal standpoint, which is where most of my career was spent, I think most of those entry level city jobs started at $15 to $18 an hour for the very lowest. And then the finance director was making well over six figures. So, I mean, there's really the sky's the limit, really, depending on your experience, your education, and you could, and then most is probably somewhere in between.
Thank you. Chelsea.
So mine's like starting point is a whopping 0. So most people who start, at least in my type of position, and they get out into the field, and they're mostly commission based. And hence why my career has been like this. But because of how things are shifting, and because there's not a actual way to go right into being an independent planner, we're actually looking at here providing that bridge to bring in at a salary position so that they get into the field and actually work comfortably, because through my entire career, I've had to be supported up until now with a part-time job. So it is not easy at all, but if you're kind of entrepreneurial, you're kind of okay with that, because you know the sky's the limit with whatever you can make. But it is very, very difficult to get started unless you go to a firm that has a salary position to start. On the administration side, that's completely different. You're probably looking at like a $30,000 to $40,000 start.
Thank you. Students, any last questions? We're getting close to 10 o'clock and I want to make sure that we allow our professionals time to get to whatever they have going on next. So last chance for any questions from students. All right, if there are none, then we will go ahead and wrap it up and just say thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you, Amanda, Chelsea, and Alicia for coming on and spending an hour with us today. This was great. I think there was a lot of really good specific cluster advice for business administration, but I also think that you gave a lot of really good life advice that could go across any field and any cluster. So thank you all for being here with us today. And if there's no questions from the students, then
Just thank you, everybody.
yeah, and make sure that you check us out. I do want to pull this up and plug our next month. We have December 2nd. Let me go ahead and share the screen. Can everyone see this? So we have on December 2nd, education and training. So if you are interested in the fields of education, that's what we'll be doing. You can see the rest of the year's schedule is here as well. Same Zoom link every time. So teachers and students feel free to join in every 2 weeks. Thank you all so much. Lee Home Connect, Mr. Culkeen's class, you need to join back into your class's Zoom. So make sure you do that so you can get credit for being present today. Thank you all so much. Thank you again to the panelists, and we will see you all on December 2nd. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. It's under Lee County Career and Tech Ed on YouTube. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.